Now, here are some of my favourites. Because they're grown in pots and containers, you can buy them from most garden centres, wherever you are, at any time of year. I happen to be filming this one when it's autumn time, and that's a great time for planting too, because it enables the roots, whilst it's still a little warm and wet, to establish so they're ready to grow on in spring. But you can plant fruit just as well in spring, summer. In fact, in pots and containers you can plant them all year round as long as the ground's not frosty. Now here, some of my favourites. Do you know, every time I taste a beautiful raspberry, it casts my mind back as a child to the raspberries my dad grew in the back garden, and we was always out there as kids, me and my brother and sister, nicking them and eating them. And do you know, shot with my own gun, my kids do that to me today, getting out there and eating them. And they're gorgeous. Here's a little tip. What I normally do is put a little tiny chocolate drop right in the hole in the raspberry there, pop it into my mouth. You get the burst of flavour from the berry and then the crunch and the sweetness from the chocolate. It's a marvellous combination. Well, you buy, we call them canes, raspberry canes, because they look like canes. You buy them just like this. You can separate them and plant them. Planting distances, I don't know, 45 to 60 centimetres, something similar. They prefer a sunny spot. You can plant them in the ground. They need a bit of support because they're canes. So against a fence, a shed, a garage, a wall, anything like that, and run some wires to tie them to. What we did this year, I grew them into, we were clearing out an area which had raspberry canes. So I dug them up and potted them into one of these large containers. I had this left over from a landscape job, but you can buy these from most garden centres. Or you could use a dustbin, buy a plastic dustbin, cut it in half and use that as just a big planter. And they've grown particularly well in containers. So the main thing to remember with raspberries is making sure a sunny, well-drained soil. So raspberries, big favourite of my top 10 in fruit. Blackberries are next. Just over the back there, there's a sort of wild area we keep really for wildlife, and saves me strimming. But we've got blackberries growing all the way through it. The kids just love it. Go in there with the bowls, picking, and they work well. If you're worried about, you know, getting scratched by all the thorns, because sometimes it can be a bit like living barbed wire, I suppose, there are varieties that are thornless, like this one here. This is Merton thornless. There's another variety called Oregon thornless. We've got one of those growing over at the greenhouse. So you get all the benefits of having a blackberry without the worry of getting your hands scratched whilst picking. It makes picking so much easier. Again, a very sunny position. They do grow in partial shade, but like a lot of fruit, you have a tendency to have a sweeter flavour from varieties that are grown in the sun, and very good. I mean, obviously, a lot of fruit, extremely rich in vitamin C, which is great for the immune system. But, you know, blackberries are more than that. Blackberries are often eaten to help with tummy issues, you know, constipation and gas and things like that. Blackberries have been targeted to be particularly good to help your tummy, and they taste fantastic. I pick them. I've got a bit of natural yoghurt in breakfast. I drop them, just wash them under the tap, drop them straight into the yoghurt. It's gorgeous. So if you're looking for a climber to grow against the wall, blackberries are fantastic. You don't need the thorns. There are thornless varieties. So let's go from smooth to very spiky. Gooseberries. We've always had gooseberries. I don't know what it is. I think it's the sharpness of the flavour. You know, when you get a really good gooseberry pie, and you've either got a little bit of cream on the top, or even better, custard, or cream custard, and you crush through the pastry top and the spoonful out, and you get the sharpness of the gooseberry. Nothing beats it. Apart from rhubarb, of course, and the combination of rhubarb and gooseberry is another thing altogether. But gooseberries are really good. You don't just have to have them in borders, you know, fruit borders. You can put them in your normal flower borders to grow, particularly if you've got, I don't know, you don't want people to come into your garden in a certain area. You plant a gooseberry because they're so thorny, nothing gets through. But of course, they're very good nutritious value. They've got great flavours and they're easy to grow. And there's many different varieties. And like many fruit plants, you can get some that crop earlier than later. In fact, the raspberries, going back to raspberries, you can buy early summer berrying ones, then midsummer, and then there's autumn varieties as well. So, you know, from the early summer right the way through to the first frosts even, you can be cropping raspberries if you choose different varieties with different ripening times, and likewise with gooseberries. Another one in the berry family, probably, you know, that has the most dense contents of vitamins will be the blueberry. You know, hugely nutritious value, extremely good for your health. And the other thing about blueberries is they don't all ripen at the same time, so you can keep going back, crop, take away, back again. You can tell when they're ripe. Of course, they turn from green to blue, and they have this like dusty colouring on the surface, but extremely good for you and very easy to grow. Now, they do prefer a slightly ericaceous or acidic soil. If you're unsure what your soil is, you can just take a little sample to your local garden centre, or there's testing kits. So very easy to do. A good sign is if you can grow rhododendrons, camellias, heathers, or people are growing them like that in your neighbourhood, you know your soil is quite acidic and it's great for blueberries. If not, you can always grow them in a pot, either a big, I mean, the bigger the container, the better. You know, you might think, you know, these plants will outgrow smaller containers quite quickly. The bigger the container, the better. And then again, use ericaceous compost, which is almost lime-free, and they grow really well. And of course, the best thing to do is to water them with natural rainwater rather than from the tap, and they'll grow pretty well. And you get flowers, you get foliage, you get autumn colour, and you get berries as well. So easy to grow, all of these varieties. Now, I said easy. There is an easier one than all of these, and that's the currants. Red currants, black currants, or even white currants. The flavour is fantastic in pies, in desserts, fruits, salads, or even on the side of a cheese board. Do you know? And it's the same with the gooseberries. I like gooseberry jam with a really strong cheddar and a nice claret. Oh, fantastic. Again, they prefer sunshine, but they will grow in partial shade. Sweeter the flavour, the brighter the position, of course. You can grow them in containers. They're just tough and tolerant. Great for flower borders as well. It doesn't have to just be a fruit area. The last one I want to talk about doesn't look much, does it? That's what it does this time of year, dies right down. But when it grows, it produces these. Beautiful. Beautiful. I mean, rhubarbs are fantastic. Just take a look. What you get during the winter, it dies right the way down. You get like a knuckle. In the trade, it's called a crown. Funnily enough, it's called a crown. We have little names for everything. If you've got horseradish root, it's called a thong. If you've got two of them, it's a pair of, well, you know what I'm saying. A crown for rhubarb, and we call them canes for raspberries, but that's another story. So always plan it so the knuckle is just above the soil, and you get during the season, they prefer it well drained, but don't let it dry out. You can tell rhubarb, I grow a lot of it over at the back, the foliage wilts very quickly. You water it and it rehydrates itself. But you get this gorgeous, gorgeous red stems, and the flavour is lovely. And it's a love or hate. One of my daughters loves dipping it into sugar and eating it, and the other daughter says, forget the rhubarb, just dips into the sugar, but that's kids for you. Here's a good tip. When you are actually harvesting rhubarb, never use a knife. Always pull it right from the stem, so you get this little section. You can cut that off later, because if you cut it and leave that on the stem, on the plant, it's sometimes raw. And don't harvest all your leaves at once. Don't forget, it's still a growing plant. Leave some leaves to create the energy to reproduce more leaves as well. So well-drained soil, plenty of organic matter, and all this fruit is easy to grow in your own garden. And planting them all year round because they're in containers, but autumn is a marvellous time for planting. It's nature's time for planting. They can establish themselves in the garden, so when it comes to next spring, they're ready to come into life. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and share. And for more great videos like this, please subscribe. And for more great information, you can visit my website, daviddomoney.com.